Hello. Today is October 30th. It's Halloween Eve. No, Halloween Eve. All Hallows Eve. It's almost Halloween.
But wait, is it the 30th All Hallows Eve or is the 31st All Hallows Eve?
I think it's the 31st. So is this Eve?
Well, this is nothing. This is just a day in October.
No, this is Halloween Eve.
Well, Halloween is the eve.
Like Christmas the 23rd. That's like Christmas Eve.
That's a hollow attempt at creating a new holiday.
Yeah.
And I'm here to report that I was unsuccessful in licensing the hermaphroditic connector patents from IBM. So we won't be having PCI Express connections like that.
What are you talking about?
That was the
People's
intro
hopes
for the
down.
news. We were talking. It's a genderless connection.
Oh, the PCI slides.
It turns out IBM has a patent on genderless connectors.
So you can blame IBM for
Although IBM
patriarchy.
IBM refers to them as hermaphroditic connectors, which is perhaps a different situation than a genderless connector. But is it really?
No. Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because that's a medical condition and the other one's a mental. Oh, wait, we shouldn't talk about that. So let's start with this might be groundbreaking. Starting with good news as the first story in the government section of Level 1 News.
The feds have said it is okay to hack DRM to fix your electronics. So like the tractor thing in California, doesn't matter. There's federal law that preempts the state law because that's just how we roll in America.
You can fix it, not just do it because you want to. You have to be able to fix it.
It's good, but there's this weird double standard in the law where the double standard in the law is that DRM in one scenario is like this perfect technology where it's like, yes, it's going to protect copyright owners. And then with stuff like this, it's like, oh, it'll be trivial for people to defeat the DRM to work on their stuff. And the reality is that it's actually difficult to defeat the DRM for like the tractor. The tractor might like short itself out and cause problems.
And then, now that's going to be interesting when we get to the point where you try to fix it. So let's say that you try to do the iPhone fix, and they've got that software that cuts it off unless it can call the Apple server, right? Then is that subject to warranty? That's going to go to court.
Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to be able to work on stuff that you own without voiding the warranty, but this is going to be the software equivalent of a warranty void if removed sticker, and I'd say that it'll go the other way.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It took a long time for this one to shake out. So we might just be tied up in court for another 6 years or something. I don't know,
Another 60 years.
But it's good news for those Ukrainians who are hacking the John Deeres because they just got legitimized. They might go public.
Those Ukrainians can actually earn side money by selling back to the Americans the tools to defeat that DRM.
Yeah.
They had a whole cottage economy going there the whole time.
That industry could be in the U.S. Those could be U.S. jobs.
That could be U.S. jobs.
You think they'll get visas to come over here and sell John Deere?
We'll just sell it online.
No, they're going to sell it on. It's going to be like on the some international version of Craigslist or something. It's like download your tractor unlock pack here, only $49.95.
Is Craigslist international or is it just U.S.?
No, it's kind of international, but it's not.
I've never actually tried looking at an overseas city.
It's not for selling goods digitally. Like, there's not going to be a Ukrainian that shows up at your farm that's like, I got the
That's
software
true.
you're looking for.
Yeah, but you could meet him in a parking lot and get a USB drive from him.
Meet at the Wendy's parking lot. Of course.
Well, that's good news for DRM, a little bit of good news, but maybe some bad news if you're a fan of net neutrality and California.
California has enacted their own net neutrality laws, but the feds are saying our laws preempt state laws, so California has agreed not to enforce their net neutrality laws until after the court case and all its appeals shake out, which could be a decade.
That starts in February. The new net neutrality in California was supposed to start January 1, so they've agreed. We'll wait to the end of the case. It's also important to note that all those other attorneys general are part of that case. So it won't just be California that wins if they win that case. It'll be a bunch of states.
Do states have the right to regulate commerce inside the state?
Ajit Pai says no.
A little bit of a loaded question there.
Ajit Pai says many things.
Well, they had a quote from the Wiener guy from California who's pro, and then, of course, Ajit Pai who's against. And one of Pai's arguments is they've never proven in court that they have that right. So, good chance to do that, lawmakers and judicial system. Well, let's talk about Donald Trump, everybody's favorite president ever. He has some worries. He has some worries. Well, actually, I'm not sure if he has these worries, but I think it was the New York Times.
They came out with a report that said his phone was being intercepted.
Yeah, worried about iPhone eavesdroppers. Now, Trump has actually said that he doesn't use an iPhone very often, but I wonder how genuine that is. Do you think he tweets from a desktop?
No.
No, absolutely not.
And in fact, the tweet that said that I hardly ever use my non-government phone was tweeted from an iPhone.
I didn't notice that part. So he says not, but more importantly, the Chinese have offered a solution.
Use a Huawei phone. Yeah, so this is in Reuters. The reality is that the cellular network, cellular telephones, are dangerously insecure for everybody, not just the president. This is not some Herculean thing that is being done. In fact, most of the cell phone towers around Washington, D.C. are fake.
According to the New York Times, these Chinese hacks they're trying to figure out how to get him to back down on these tariffs. Like that's the big reason for the hacking. Although I imagine they would do it no matter what if they had the capacity.
They have the capacity, yeah, for sure.
Well, another thing that Trump has decided is that he needs better technology in the White House. Surprisingly enough, Trump's inner circle, not very adroit at technology. Shocking.
Good vocabulary use there.
So now he has a solution in mind.
The White House wants to borrow tech workers from Google and Amazon. So literally, the White House's plan in 2 sentences was a tech worker at Amazon could elect to go on sabbatical from Amazon and go to work for the government. And that could be like a week, a month, a year.
What tasks are they going to have them working on, though?
They want to beef up the IT security infrastructure and, improve the web presence and stuff like that.
How insane do you have to be? Like, I'm going to go to, working conditions here at Amazon are so terrible. I'm going to threaten to go to work for the White House if my boss doesn't treat me better.
But the technology world, Silicon Valley especially, is so lefty. Can you imagine if you're like, hey, everybody in the office, I'm going to go work for Trump for a while. And you come back, they wouldn't even speak to you.
Or maybe you don't want to come back. Maybe it's a power play for yourself.
You'll come back and somebody will have taken a dump in your desk drawer.
But it's crusty and old because, it's been there for months. Yeah.
Or there could be several. You never know.
Speaking of dumps in desk drawers.
Well, hardly. Maybe a dump of excitement because this was such a slap on the wrist. But
do you dump when you're excited? I don't know.
Well, some people might. So Yahoo has finally been called on the carpet for their massive security breach to the tune of $50 million.
Wasn't it like 3 lifetimes ago that Verizon bought Yahoo and Verizon wanted...
Who even owns Yahoo anymore?
That's Verizon.
Is it Verizon?
Verizon, didn't they renegotiate and save like $1 billion?
Because that was after the hack.
So Verizon was worried about nothing. $50 million? That's just...
And they're not even going to pay all of it. They're going to pay a portion of it, and then the holding company for settling all of Yahoo's debt and stuff is going to pay the rest of it. So that's definitely good news for Verizon.
Well, I mean, step away from the technology side of this. If you're a business analyst and you're looking at it and it's like, well, the cost of securing our stuff is going to be like $500 million, or if the cost of just dealing with it whenever we're breached is 50, we don't need to secure it.
Well, also, let's take that money we were going to use to secure it, put that into lobby dollars, and really guarantee that we don't get hurt when it actually happens. I think that's the smartest move, right?
Easy clap.
Well, it's often the case that something terrible will happen, and the U.S. politicians, maybe those lobbying dollars did steer them towards some really, really low fines or just ignoring it altogether. But in most cases, the EU are a little bit harsher.
This is an Italian investigation, and The Guardian brings us a report of Apple and Samsung being fined for deliberately slowing down old phones. But when you read into it, it actually says that the Italians found that newer software runs poorly on older hardware. So things like making a call was one of the things. It was like if you make a call using the older software, it takes a certain amount of time. And if you make a call using the newer software, it takes much longer. And they didn't understand why on earth the newer software would slow down when doing a thing like making a call. Because that's not a new feature. The phone was literally just making a call.
And also, there was no option not to do that. Your device was going to do it no matter what you wanted, and they wouldn't give you a newer version of the old software that performed the same but had security fixes. So they've decided, I think it was 10 and 5 million.
Yeah.
So again, not real tough. I mean, it's not going to stop them from doing it again.
Pennies to those companies.
At least someone has pointed it out.
Yeah, it's a surcharge of what, like a penny or two per phone sold, like not even.
Yeah, they're happy to pay that. And following in the theme of the EU cracking down on these horrible mobile companies.
Well, no, this one's sort of the opposite of that, because the EU National Court has ruled against Google in an antitrust process for third-party app stores, and this one specifically. So there's this Portuguese third-party app store, I guess, and you can install this third-party app store on your Google device, but Google Play has recently started flagging it as like malicious and bad, and you shouldn't use it. But the EU has found that is an antitrust, since the devices are capable of third-party app stores.
Yeah, this one, it's kind of a crowdsourced app store. So they, I guess you could say that they, pick the best stuff and try to keep the dangerous stuff out. And as we see week after week, there's horrible, horrible apps that are tracking you and installing Bitcoin miners and stealing your Bitcoin keys. And
why isn't Apple getting fined? I mean, I don't think it's fair that Apple can have the Apple Store, but Google has Google Play and nothing else.
I think they ruled. I remember that. The problem is you must make your own device and software.
And so that's what Apple does.
Right. Yeah. So if the whole garden belongs to you, you can build a wall. But if you have migrant workers, then you can't do that. Well, we had Amazon. The people came out and they didn't like the AI image recognition stuff they were doing with the cops. We got Google. They don't like the Dragonfly.
The Chinese search engine that hides things.
It's the age of revolt in the tech industry, and now it's Microsoft's turn.
Microsoft is defending its bid for $10 billion of Pentagon cloud services amid criticism over government use of technology. So really, I mean, the executives at Microsoft are saying, why would we not bid on this? I mean, it's money. I mean, they've already, Homeland Security, Microsoft already got a lot of flack for running, like Homeland Security uses Office 365 for their email. And so Microsoft
and
got
ICE.
a lot. Oh yeah, and immigrations and yeah. So why wouldn't they take the money? I mean, the workers don't matter.
Yeah, well, that's basically what they said. They said that everybody's opinion matters and it's important. We're going to do what we want, ultimately.
But we'll listen. You can put your suggestion right in that box over there. We'll shred it later.
Tell me about your ideas on why we shouldn't take. Okay, I'm going to put your name on this list here, and I'm going to remember that.
Why don't you run down to the store, get some poster board and some glue and some glitter, make a little sign.
Put it up in the locker, but get your work done.
Well, you know who won't be making festive posters, at least not after a nice air-conditioned or heated ride to school, Floridian children.
The feds have shut down a self-driving school bus pilot in Florida. This is a really convoluted story.
Scroll down so they can see it. It's pretty cute.
So there's a bunch of kids at this community in Florida, and normally there's not bus service. They just walk or ride their bikes to school. And this French company applied for a permit or something for this self-driving bus, but they didn't tell the transportation cabinet that they were going to be having school children in the bus. And so when the transportation cabinet figured it out, they were like, whoa, you can't have a self-driving bus full of children. That would be bad if something
French
happened.
were like, why not?
Yeah.
That's my best French accent.
It's called transdev. You think they have a code of conduct?
I think that the French company behind that probably didn't think about what they were doing or something.
Yeah, so it turns out there are a lot of rules about school buses, and basically these guys asked for permission to do one thing, which was just some testing.
A self-driving bus. There was no mention of children.
Yeah,
it could be any kind of bus, not a school bus.
When they got here, they were like, throw those kids on there. Let's see what happens, and that's not okay.
They had a real driver following the bus sometimes.
And I think there was a person sitting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even better.
They just, they didn't actually do anything. They didn't need to the whole time. They only moved at 8 miles an hour.
But if someone else hit them, then they're liable.
It could have also burst into flames. I mean, it might have been like the Ford Pinto
Yeah, we don't
like-
know. We don't know nothing about these French buses.
Like
It's
I,
true.
I ran over a speed bump. Oh, there's a hole in the gas tank. Oh, the car's on fire. Could be. I mean, you don't know.
There was probably like an hour a day where it just didn't do anything.
Contemplated how best to burst into flames.
Well, someone else who won't be doing anything but sitting quietly for probably from now on is the swatter.
Serial swatter Tyler Barriss.
Barriss.
Will plead. He's not French. Will plead guilty to all charges related to man's police act. Now we reported on this. This was the swatting that was out in Kansas City, and both gamers ended up getting in trouble because
There were 3 people.
it was kind of a publicity stunt. Or one was like, he's not really going to do it, is he? It's like he's totally going to do it. It's like, okay, well, I'll go along with it, but they're both gamers got in trouble. The swatter and the swattee.
There was a third guy, though.
Swatty.
I think, like there was the guy who he was angry at and the swatter, and then I think the third guy, like, actually gave the address or something.
Oh, yeah. So everybody's in trouble because that's just not how you conduct yourself. Although, I don't know why we have militarized police, but hey, whatever. It's cool.
Yeah, he's not even going to go to trial. That's probably smart. Why would you?
Yeah.
There's no way he wins. But he is looking at life, so he might be doing this to plea and get some possibility of ever seeing the free world again.
Yeah, part of the plea was also agreeing to confess to more swattings. So they got him for other swattings. And I think that's a later story, isn't it?
No, that was it. There was like 46 more.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Messy.
He did a lot of swatting, including Canada. So he was international. I wonder if that's an extra charge. I bet it is.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed this. They haven't really publicized it. I mean, it's easy to miss. But there's going to be an election.
Please no.
I've seen.
Not again. Those always go so badly.
And you can actually vote early. If you want to, you can be an early voter. But some early voters are finding some difficulties.
These computer scientists and smart people keep telling us not to do electronic voting, and by God, we're going to do electronic voting because I don't know why. So in Texas, some are saying that the voting machines are flipping selections to the other party. There are, because there's a camera in everybody's phones, people are making video of it, and sure enough, it is actually this is actually happening, and it is because of god awful user interface design.
Well, what effect will that have? It's fine. It's a feature, not a bug.
Now, there's 2 interesting things here. The first thing that's interesting is that this was never caught in testing, or just no one cares. The second interesting thing is it only affects you if you vote very quickly and down the party line. Like you just click the all red or the all blue button. So as many people as are reporting this, it means a lot of people are partisan voting.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
So yeah, the idea, if you've ever been on a web page where like it'll load, this one drives me crazy. Like the web page is loading and you click in a text box, but then when the web page gets finished loading, the document ready moves your cursor to another text box because it's like, oh, you want to start here, right? It's that kind of thing. So when it finally loads up, it does something to the UI that it doesn't have time to do before you vote.
My favorite one is when you go to tap the screen on your phone and an ad loads in right and then pushes the button down.
Everything down, yeah.
That is what is happening basically, except it's not an ad that's loading. But
How long do you think it'll be before we have ads on voting machines?
I'd say there probably already are in some district somewhere has an ad.
Maybe you
on the
can
voting
pay
machine.
more to have your ad on the side of the
That would
page
be-
as you go down.
That'd be great. It's like, made some tough decisions today. Kroger Donuts.
Easter donuts.
Well, back to the EU and them cracking down on technology. They love to crack technology. They hate it. They hate the big media companies. They hate the big technology companies. And now they're pushing for the ultimate price.
I got to admit, when I read
no.
the headline here, it was like Germany is pushing for a minimum tax for digital giants, a global minimum tax. And I was like, this is like the dumbest thing ever. But the reasoning when I read through it was not actually terrible. It was like, look, if a company knows that no matter what country they're operating in, they're going to have to pay at least a certain amount of tax, then we avoid this insanity of companies like spooling up in the Caribbean and then like the Irish thing, and it's like the double Dutch Irish sandwich of tax, whatever. And we avoid this situation where these companies are exploiting all these loopholes to try to lower their taxes.
But who sets that tax rate?
Yeah, exactly. So
Never going to work. Because, was it Estonia? is like that little country who just loves to get on the bleeding edge of all the different technology.
They got amazing fiber optics.
Yeah.
They actually care about their infrastructure.
But every time something weird happens, they just turn it off. They're like, nope, get rid of it.
Just kidding.
Well, speaking of just turning things off, how about the Chinese? The spigot of new games has been closed.
China halts a special approval process for new games. So this is like a cultural ministry thing.
Yeah, they want to. So they think that computer gaming causes inattention, myopia.
That's
And nearsightedness, and like other undesirable things in the children, and they want to curb that.
So no children, no Red Dead Redemption 2 for children, right?
I guess not.
This thing is so bizarre because it's like, I mean, you could make the same argument for reading. It's like, oh, they're going to be nearsighted. They read.
Well, I
too
bet
much.
there's
They're
some
too
books you're not allowed to read in China for sure.
Yeah. Good point.
So yeah, they have this approval process, and they just announce, they're like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. You do have 1 month. You have like a 1 month testing period for your monetization strategies. So they can get away with it for a month. Fortnite cannot get started in China because of this.
Wow.
Oh,
There's-
all the hackers though.
They said there's going to be a new process, but there were no details. It's like, all right, tell us what the new process is. And they were like,
It's going to be whatever games we like.
yeah. So they really need to standardize on their regulation rules.
What if the person who's in charge of that only likes really obscure, like Japanese fighting
They
games or something?
Yeah, they like the, hidden image hentai games. Those are the ones that they play.
That's all that you can play in China.
Well, speaking of hentai, Japan has made some rules about cryptocurrency.
Japan has granted cryptocurrency, the industry in Japan as being capable of self-regulation, which doesn't make any sense to me. But Japan's financial services agency is basically saying, we have no idea.
Yeah, it's the Japan Virtual Currency Exchange Association. So the idea here is that the Japanese government does not understand anything about crypto. They're old, they're out of touch, they don't know what's going on. So they're just going to hand over the reins to let this association make rulings and avoid bureaucracy.
There wasn't the least blip at all in Bitcoin pricing. So I think everyone is ambivalent as to this change.
Yeah, I don't think it affects the established coins as much as the newer stuff. So we'll see, I guess. And speaking of Bitcoin, we probably could have put the two China stories together. But hey, they're both about Bitcoin, so it's okay.
A Chinese court has ruled that Bitcoin should be protected as property, which is a little unusual.
As in something you own.
Yes. Well, it's unusual because cryptocurrency exchanges are banned in China. You can't exchange cryptocurrencies through an exchange in China. But I guess person-to-person transactions are still okay? Because that's what this court case was about.
Yeah, so some guy borrowed Bitcoin or something, and Bitcoin Cash or something else, I don't know, and then went into some business venture and that failed. And so the original party said, I want that back. That's my property. And the other person who failed said, no, it's not legal to do cryptocurrency in China, so I don't have to give that back to you. And it went to court.
Nope, it's property.
Definitely property. So you think he got it when it was worth, $5,000?
Probably.
It's going to be, I don't know, what's the rule there? That's interesting. Well, let me just, I'm going to just give you a sentence, right? And you can tell me how many spine chills it gives you, right? Logan Paul for president.
It's not really a spine chill so much as like a full body recoil. I feel like a little bit of vomit come up my throat.
BuzzFeed brings us this really just horrifying darkest timeline article.
BuzzFeed News.
Which is YouTubers will enter politics, and the ones who do are probably going to win because that actually happened.
In, was it Venezuela?
Brazil. This gentleman right here is on the Senate, I believe. And what are his qualifications for being there?
Dank memes.
Nothing.
Does he volunteer in his own community?
No.
Literally, most of his election stuff was dank memes.
Yeah, a lot of memes, YouTube videos. He is apparently number one, like front page of YouTube in Brazil every single day. And he's very right wing. And, Brazil's got the presidential race going on. So he's sort of riding that populist wave. But he also has created this organization of people who are sort of aligned with him politically. He's getting them all set up on YouTube. And YouTube ad revenue funds their entire campaign.
Does that mean we need to run for office?
We don't.
Do you want it?
No. Do any of us want that responsibility? No.
God, no.
But not only that, but I'm pretty sure that we can't generate the hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue required to run a campaign.
Listen, this guy did it.
Well, but in Brazil, I think it said he made like 11 grand a month in US dollars.
Listen.
Which is a lot in Brazil.
We're like the same as him.
But I mean, try to
Front
run
page of YouTube every day.
Try to run a political campaign on 11 grand a month. You won't even be able to keep paper towels.
Everyone has to bring their own soap from home.
So Facebook has this reputation. We're switching to social media, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Facebook has a reputation for gobbling up companies, causing their CEOs to leave in frustration, and then destroying said company.
Here's the new data point on that line. The Oculus co-founder is leaving Facebook after the cancellation of the Rift 2 headset. So Facebook's working on a new VR headset, and it doesn't align with what the Oculus co-founder has in mind.
Which was everything that was not normie.
Yeah, so Facebook seems to want to do lower power, wireless phone integration kind of stuff. This guy wants to move VR forward. He wants real immersion. He wants powerful headsets.
Lower latency.
And they don't agree. So he's going to...
those don't sell as well. So let's not do that.
The VR revolution certainly did not happen. I think it's a combination of price and some people vomiting explosively after using it.
Yeah, I think it's mostly the price, because I think my family would love that kind of thing. But none of them are going to pay that much for a device just to do that. Like when the Wii came out, though, and it was like conveniently priced, my family was all over it.
Oh, yeah. That was real normie. Wii is the most normie of all the consoles.
It definitely is.
Yeah, it sold huge, too. Although I think the Switch is beating it.
I can see that.
Well, if you like putting pictures of your kids on Facebook, please stop. Because no one cares. But more importantly, they might get flagged.
The children are going to be consumed by the algorithm.
That's like a more distressing version of this headline.
TechCrunch says that Facebook has removed 8.7 million child exploitation posts with new machine learning tech. But a lot of people have popped up and said, hey, pictures of my kids in the bathtub has mysteriously disappeared from Facebook.
Which I'm not like Ryan. I like to see updates on my friends' kids and stuff, but posting pictures of your kids in the bathtub is that's like a step too far for the internet. 'Cause that picture stays there forever.
You don't want to see baby on the potty chair?
No. I don't even want to see that in my own family albums. I don't really want to see it on the internet either. It's fine. I'm glad they're potty trained. Don't need to know the details.
But you also are creating a situation where, nobody alive... Well, how long has Facebook been around?
2007?
So we're just getting to the point where people are getting old enough that their entire life has been on Facebook.
Well, that's not the question. Yes, that's true. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, would, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, high schoolers in Machiavellian plots find the potty training picture of your enemy and then do terrible things to it? And the answer is,
yeah, that's good. They're taking that straight down to Kinko's, getting it blown up into poster size.
Yeah.
Kinko's.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want this for your student body president?
They didn't get potty trained until they were 3.
I think you shouldn't post pictures of your kids on Facebook the same reason you shouldn't pierce their ears. That's not your decision to make.
I do know a lot of people who pierce their kids' ears really young.
It ain't right. Well, speaking of Facebook, a savage penalty. If you consider a few years ago penalty. Now, today penalty, maybe not so much, but a few years ago, savage.
So that whole Cambridge Analytica thing, Facebook has been fined $645,000, which was the pre-GDPR maximum. $645,000, that's it. Why were they worried?
Post-GDPR would be $17 million.
Why were they worried about GDPR?
That's like the price of a mansion.
It's not even a nice mansion.
It's just like a builder's grade mansion.
But they're in California. That's the price of a 1-bedroom.
Yeah. Here, that's a mansion. You'd be on the Kentucky River and Sunset Vista. It'd be beautiful.
Might be able to have your own steamboat.
Yeah, you could have nice internet and live in the country.
Some horses.
Yeah.
Several horses.
Some thoroughbreds.
Wake up on a cold January morning. Oh, crap, the horses. I forgot. I have horses. Hope they're okay.
Or the chickens in your case. You were talking about the chickens being inside when it was cold.
Yeah.
Well, we've all heard Russia. Like, Russia is the ultimate enemy.
Marsha.
And
That's what I was thinking.
well, yeah, that's the meme.
You got to say it more shrill.
They're going to invade our election. They're going to ruin everything. They're hacking. They're stealing. They are the ultimate enemy. Oh, unless China. Sometimes China's doing that. It could be Russia or it could be China. Or now a new player has entered the game.
Iran. Facebook has said they've uncovered an Iranian disinformation campaign to sow political discord over Trump and race. So, like, they break down like how this is supposed to work, but I'm just incredulous. Like, maybe people getting a license to go on the internet is not such a bad thing.
Oh,
it's like you have to be
don't
like,
even float that idea. Shh.
it's like you have to have above a 5th grade reading level and also be at least this jaded in order to go on the internet.
You're presented with like 5 download buttons. You have to choose the correct one.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
but
part
what
of
if
the
you
test.
didn't get your license? Like, what if you got to renew it and you couldn't get on the internet?
I'm sure that I would be able to get on the internet. It'll be
You're
fine.
sure?
Yes.
Well, yeah, so could the Iranians. That's why that won't work. So what the interesting thing, though, is they talk about how these guys, they laid out all the different activity that these things had, and they had hundreds of thousands of views on some of those videos. So is it necessarily malice, or is it just greed? Because I'm sure they're getting some ad dollars somewhere, right?
Can we come up with like a counter
both?
group that exploits the ad dollar thing so that it goes both ways?
Weren't the Russians doing that?
Yeah.
So what? We can use the Russians. That's like bringing in the snakes to control the mice. And finally,
Come the downvotes.
a final story about Trump. And everybody loves him so much. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of comments that are pro-Trump because we always do. But he's way down on last week's Twitter purge.
Trump accuses Twitter of political bias because of the purge and a whole bunch of other craziness that's going on. Twitter is taking odd steps because we had a lot of craziness in general, like political craziness. And so all these technology leaders are like, oh, I have to do something, but they're really just spazzing out.
I kind of get the vibe that Twitter doesn't really want to do anything, but they know if they don't, people will be angry. So they're taking these kind of half measures for the most part. Like,
I can't tell that they're really doing anything. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I even really want them to do anything.
Well,
Yeah.
but if you don't do something, as we'll find out in the business section, think bad things can happen to you. Because we have another social media site that took the path of like, no, we're not going to silence anybody. It's free speech. Didn't work out for them.
No. Well, I think that that particular group is being duplicitous. But you're going to have to stay tuned for the next episode of the news because,
and it'll be on Halloween. Yay.
yeah, the set's dark because it's spooky.
Not because we don't have it lit up well.
But it's okay that it's on Halloween because you're all too old to be celebrating Halloween. I'm sorry.
You don't know. We might have some younger fans,
No.
maybe.
If you're old enough to understand the subtle nuance in all of our stories and the hilarious subtext, then you should not be dressing up.
That's a presumptuous word, hilarious.
Well, you would maybe snort out of your nose slightly,
Chortle.
like a
Slightly elevated breathing.
Yeah.
Some of these people get no part of the humor. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much goes over their head. And it's just like, I would love to sit down with them and try to penetrate that mind. It's like, what goes on in there?
It's like, I have noticed that. It's like, we'll say something that is just so outlandish and they take it completely seriously.
Actually, that's not true at all. Much
Right,
the
buddy?
opposite.
Good job.
Yeah. So more of that tomorrow.
Today is Halloween. Yay.
Did you have like an office Halloween party? Because you should post pictures at Level 1. Like, that's your engagement challenge. It's like, dress up, whatever. The only Halloween parties I really liked were the ones in college. Those were good. Otherwise, no.
Did that have anything to do with all the girls dressing
Yes.
as sexy X?
Yes.
Whatever X could be anything.
Yeah, I mean, between all the girls at the party, you might have been able to get enough cloth for a handkerchief.
Excuse you. I usually dressed up as a gypsy or a hippie.
No Lord of the Rings?
That works.
No, that required money, and I didn't have money in college. I had no money, so I had to use clothes that I already owned.
It really is amazing, though, because it's just a contest of who can be the sluttiest in college.
Yeah, I was kind of
And it's
blown away when
fantastic.
I went to my first Halloween party because I was like, maybe I should be a cat. I could just wear leggings and a black t-shirt. And I was like, that's probably too, form-fitting, so I didn't do it. Got to the party and everyone's wearing like lingerie. And I was like, oh, I totally could have been a cat. I wouldn't have even like compared. It was so cold too. I was like, what, are you guys crazy?
You got what? You got to make sacrifices. You're going to be the sexiest cat, the sexiest witch or whatever.
I don't know what started that trend for Halloween, but it's not a bad thing.
One girl did it and got insane amounts of attention, and the other girls were jealous of that attention.
Well, I was gonna say, I think a lot of girls use it as sort of a pass. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, I can dress up whatever I want.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean,
Right.
I think this is related to our first story in the girl is Bloomberg.
Well,
she got lots of attention.
but I think another girl is Apple, and that girl's like Krista. That girl doesn't want attention. That girl wants to be left alone and not be maligned.
And Amazon has also come out and said that this whole Bloomberg Chinese spy chip story thing is BS. So that's Jassy, Chief Jassy. I don't know. What was his first name? Andy Jassy, CEO, has said that Bloomberg got their story wrong. We did a special on the spy chip. We did that on
Special report.
Sunday of this week. So you should check that out and watch it because it's theoretically possible, but mostly the Bloomberg story has to be BS for a number of reasons. The idea of that is plausible, but the specifics that the article talks about, no.
Well, last week we talked about that is the first time that Apple has ever called for a retraction in all of its years. I don't know about Amazon, but they certainly don't do it a lot because you don't want to get that idea that, you're somebody who's whining about the media, right? But in this case, they're saying, no, this is so false, you must pull it. And not only that, but they're taking it further.
They've pulled their ads from Bloomberg over the China hack story. I mean, that's not insane. It's like, so Amazon has said, Bloomberg, you're not doing the retraction. You're not even issuing any comments from us to say this is what this is. So because Bloomberg is just playing possum with Amazon has pulled their ads. Apple has also barred Bloomberg from going to the iPad event. So there's getting a new iPad Pro that's blah, blah, blah. Who cares? But Apple, Bloomberg, not happening.
And that probably hurts a little bit more, actually. I mean, it's not money, but everybody wants to go to the Apple event because that's guaranteed clicks.
I don't want to go to the Apple
The
event.
iPad event, I think that was in mid-October. So it's probably already passed by now, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, it happened after the story.
Still after the story broke.
So they were like, you're not... They talked about one other company that they wouldn't let come for a long... Maybe it was Gawker. I mean, it was like, they wouldn't let them come for years. And finally, they just let them back in. So who knows? Bloomberg might be out for the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's, you think Apple is bitter? Like, what do you call it when they remember everything?
Elephants.
They're an elephant.
No, I mean, it's like when it's like you remember every little mistake that somebody has made. You never forgive anybody for anything.
Being a jerk?
There's a word for that. I don't remember.
I don't know. Sometimes that's called for. Well, not to be left out in the fake news category is Intel.
There were several reports this week that said that Intel was abandoning their 10 nanometer, process because they've had some fabrication problems that's allowed the competition to get a leg up on them. 7 nanometer chips are in mass production for mobile, at least. And so Intel has come out and said, no, we are not abandoning the 10 nanometer process. But I think from reading the stories and looking at everything online, I think both are true. I think that Intel is not really abandoning the 10 nanometer process, but it is shaking up things internally. And so like the group that's working on the 10 nanometer process, I think is being broken into like 3 different groups. And so the 10 nanometer process as they envisioned it probably is dead. But somebody at Intel hopefully, surely knows what's going on, maybe, possibly. Or not, as the case may be, because the whole Spectre and Meltdown thing, well, we've got some news on that as well.
Last month was, I guess it was this month. The big October update was real bad for Microsoft. It deleted some files, changed some settings. People weren't too happy about it. And maybe this one will get some goodwill back for them.
So Windows 10 is going to do away with the Spectre patch from Intel, and they're going to go with Google's patch, the Return Trampoline, the Retpoline patch from Windows 10. And so this actually is disturbing on a number of levels. So Google came out with something that helps mitigate Spectre v2. Google is not doing...
They don't really have a dog in that fight, do they?
They're not doing CPU engineering. You mean to tell me that Intel, with its Intel, couldn't come up with something so clean and elegant? That's really horrifying about the nature of Meltdown and Spectre. Like, how does the company fail so spectacularly that Google's solution is cleaner and better than Intel's own solution? Because Intel knows what's going on in the black box of the microcode and everything else. Their engineers should be in a better position to solve that problem. How did Google do a better job? This patch, huh?
They probably spied. They used their data collection.
The AI. It's like the super intelligence that's running Google is like, is it not obvious to you humans?
It's sort of like one line of code.
Yeah. But it inserted its own flaw to be exploited later.
It was like 2 lines of code.
During the AI war. Well, we talked in our last episode, which if you haven't seen, you should go and watch. It's important that you see those stories about the right to repair and a rare win for the consumer in terms of right to repair. And now Motorola delivers another win.
This is amazing. So Motorola becomes the first smartphone company to sell DIY repair kits to its customers. So
look at
there you go. You get a little guitar pick, a little suction cup.
You can take it apart and fix it.
This is $80.
It looks like you could put one of these kits together with just like stuff in your garage.
Yeah, how much are they charging for this? I missed it.
I don't know. I think it's different per phone.
They're working directly with iFixit too, to sell the kits.
It's going to be the Moto X, Z, G4, G5, and Droid Turbo 2 you're going to be able to get.
Comes with tools and genuine Motorola replacement parts. This is how it's done. I'm sure it's overpriced. I'm sure it's a terrible deal. But
well, you also get videos.
Yeah.
That, of course, you get those on YouTube probably. But hey, it's definitely a step up from Apple, who seizes stuff at the border and sues you. So,
and they probably won't ask you to like, favorite, and subscribe. They'll just be like, "This is just a short video to tell you how to use this repair kit."
I would love to see Motorola, like the LG G5 with the modular battery and the modular system. I would love to see Motorola, close the loop here and make a phone that has as modular of a design as the G5, plus the replacement parts and the replacement kits. We might finally see the era of miniaturized but standardized electronics.
And we might also see Motorola go out of business because they're not getting those planned obsolescence dollars that all the other companies are. I don't. But if people adopt it in a big way, then maybe that could offset that. I don't know.
How cool would it be though? It's like I'm running this, ancient, like the shittiest phone panel imaginable, but I've just swapped in the new 7-nanometer CPU because that's all I really needed.
Except the normies are never going to do it. They're going to buy iPhones because that's what they think's cool. And well. You know what else the normies seem to be getting into all of a sudden, shocking a lot of people, are those electric cars.
Now I want all the upvotes for this because Tesla shares have soared on a surprise third quarter profit that beats Wall Street expectations. But if you look at the graph, it actually makes perfect sense. I mean, Elon Musk said that we're going to turn a profit just as soon as the Model 3 enters, like the production ramps up. And all of the costs and expenses and negative cash flow in Tesla are from ramping up manufacturing. But once you've got the manufacturing lines going, then you start collecting money, the actual money from all the stuff that you're making. And so once you've made 10 or 15,000 cars and you're producing another 5,000, whatever, you can start to make money really, really super quickly. And that's what happened here.
Yeah, he did say there were a lot of people who thought that he was going to have to borrow more money because of the cash burn. But he said, no, that's the last time we have to do that because we're going to make money. Everybody's like, hey, you're not going to make money. Well, they made a little bit of money.
If you look at the graph, it looks like it was exactly like what he said, where it's like we did the first model and they made a tiny little bit of money on the first model, but he took all the profits and reinvested it into the next model and then took all those profits and reinvested it into the next model. And the amount of spend and the amount of profit, increased at each step of the way. So cool.
Good for him, I guess.
Yay. I wonder if the people that shorted the stock are going to go insane because it actually really is legit nearing like $420 a share.
Well, if they're smart, they got out when they got those huge gains. But one thing, so there, what the call was, this was the conference call, that revealed all this. It did not go without some drama. He was asked who is going to replace him because this is his last conference call. He's not going to be the chairman anymore.
Oh, right.
Well,
So he declined to answer that question. In fact, ignored it. So not a subject he likes to talk about. Well, in the last episode, we talked about, should Twitter ban certain accounts, right? If people are saying things that Twitter doesn't agree with, is it okay for them to ban people? Well, turns out there's a Twitter that doesn't ban anybody. And, yeah.
PayPal has banned Gab following Pittsburgh shooting. So Gab is a social network like Twitter, but you can just post anything. And actually, they had a lot of really terrible things that they had posted themselves. But then I went back looking for that, and they had deleted a bunch of stuff. So this is just a terrible mess. I don't think Gab's hands are clean here. But PayPal is like, oh no, we're not gonna let them be a customer of ours.
Well, but this goes back to the whole thing where it's like, can you hold the forum responsible for the individual?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is so if you're not familiar, there was a guy who shot up a synagogue, and he was apparently very anti-Semitic in his scabs. So that's why he did it. It was a hate crime, it seems like. And
He was banned from Twitter. He went to Gab.
right. So, but I always ask the question, do you think it would have, shouldn't we know about these guys? Actually, I think some lawmaker had reported this guy and his tweets and was like, oh my God, somebody needs to do something about this guy.
Somebody's got to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. So if you take that away and these people don't have a forum, then does that make them any less crazy?
The answer is no.
Yeah.
But-
They just don't have a place to spout it anymore.
And there's also such a double standard because when you talk about the mass shootings, especially the school shootings, it's almost always people who want attention. Like that's maybe the most dangerous individual is the person who's desperate for attention. And even if you got to go to jail for the rest of your life, hey, everybody knows your name, right? So is it okay that all the major news stations are digging up this guy's past and broadcasting every detail of his life and putting his face on the screen for 20 hours a day, but you're not allowed to read his tweets?
Yeah. What was that?
The cookies made a noise. We have lemon cookies back here.
The lemon cookies want to make their...
The lemon cookies have strong feelings about Gab.
They do. Maybe they tweet on Gab. They gab on Gab, if you will.
Well, speaking of, Tesla, they talked about they don't need more money, right? And everybody was shocked. Hey, maybe they're going to get through the year without having to raise capital. But you know who's not going to do that?
Maybe Tesla can give Netflix a loan because Netflix has got to raise $2 billion in debt to fund more original content. Is this the article that has the little graph of how much money Netflix has spent over the last several years? Because it's insane.
There's a lot of original series. Like they have some that really take off, like House of Cards or The Crown. But they have some that it's like they're just garbage. I feel like they need to focus more on getting quality shows instead of just
But
throwing
that's
money
true of
everywhere.
every television network. Like they don't know what people are going to pick up on.
Yeah.
They're doing it algorithmically, and the algorithm is going to tell them that the most vapid, lowest common denominator content is the most profitable, and so that's what we're going to get more of.
I
But-
don't know, though.
We just covered in the recent weeks because Netflix did their earnings recently as well. And they had a surprising number of new subscribers. What was it, like 700 or 7 million new subscribers or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah.
But they spent, I think, $7 billion
Yeah.
to get 7 million subscribers. And that math doesn't work out at all. But they claim that's the only way they're going to stay competitive and there's no need to worry about the cash burn.
Neat.
So
At least what they mean is there's no need to worry about it right now. That's future Netflix's problem,
yeah.
not current Netflix's problem.
For now, the stock price is good. Our options are still okay. Everything's we're going into Christmas. Everybody's happy.
Wow.
Well, we've talked about Google and we've talked about a lot of gender conflict in the Silicon Valley world.
We had the Google Plus story where Google might not have acted in a way that would be with the highest ethical standards.
Well, they talked about the Google Plus team like being very dysfunctional internally,
Yeah.
and how that led to it. We also had the James Damore guy, who said that there was a lot of like gender conflict within Google. Well, this is just another log on the fire.
The New York Times has this really interesting article about Andy Rubin, who's sort of thought of as the father of Android, one of the original developers, I guess, for Android. Google paid him $90 million and praised him while keeping silent a claim about sexual misconduct.
This was it was hard to understand exactly, but it seemed like he was having some kind of relationship with a woman at Google, another employee, who he was clearly superior to in rank. And they ended up in a hotel room, and he coerced her into a sexual act. But then you think, well, maybe she's just, accusing him of something. But then it says Google did an investigation, and they felt like it had happened. So maybe he admitted to it or whatever. And so what was presented as him moving on to the next thing, we wish him the best, was actually them telling him, you're out, but don't make a scene, and we're going to give you $90 million.
Huh.
Good to know that sexual assault pays off.
I don't know if it was assault per se.
Per se.
Maybe coercion. I don't know. I guess people draw the line in different places there, but certainly not something this young lady was happy about after the fact.
It will be magical, I promise. No.
Well,
or I'll give you a raise.
it wasn't the kind of act where she would experience any magic.
If he was a superior to her, it may have been like, or I'll write you up or whatever.
So, yeah. The New York Times article goes into this long history of trysts and relationships among the Google people,
Well, if you're not going anywhere all day, I mean.
Yeah, they're just there on the campus. And they got, they've built their own little world. Of course, they're going to intermingle within that world.
It's like Hollywood.
Let's hope not. All the terrible things that happen there.
Well, if you go, every once in a while we'll get CoinDesk and some of those other sites will be on the news, right? And if you look at the ads, there are some suspicious ads on those sites. Very suspicious. Some of them are even going to tell you it's like, you'll make millions with this ICO. Well, turns out that if you're suspicious of those, you might be very, very right.
So this article is about how these guys asked different places that report on cryptocurrency if they could run an article without disclosing that it's advertisement. And more than half said yes.
Krista, how do you like this design?
I don't like it at this screen size. I don't like black text on red either.
Well, look over here.
It's low contrast.
They don't even have, you can't even see this part at this. They need some
screen size.
breakpoints.
What's it look like in desktop?
We're not interested in anybody that has less than 1080p resolution reading our stuff.
Yeah.
This is a really bizarre design.
It's not great. But the idea here is this guy had worked on some crypto sites, and he would constantly get emails, and they were like, hey, this is kind of an ad, but we'd like you to treat it as if it weren't. And here's some money. And he would always turn them down, but he was like, I wonder how many take it. So they did a little sting investigation. The answer was half.
Neat. So it's like tech YouTubers then.
We would never take money from sponsors. Where's all of our investments?
We don't even do pre-rolls, although we might start doing pre-rolls just for funsies.
Just for funsies. Also
For
money.
Munsies.
Yeah.
Munsies.
Munsies, like tendies, mundies.
Oh, I have made another catastrophic failure in the order alignment. This
Oh.
clearly should have gone right after
I thought we moved this one. Did we not?
I don't know. I thought I did. But anyway, I couldn't have just one good Tesla story right.
It's
No,
unacceptable for Ryan.
The guys that upvoted the Tesla stuff, they've already stopped watching. It's fine.
They're just
They've already retweeted this episode of the news.
they're running nude through the yard in elation.
They're outside hugging their Tesla. Also nude.
Well, it turns out the Department of Justice is looking into. So we had the 420 tweet, right? Yeah,
Yep.
the funding secured. Well, that's settled, right? But they're now saying when he was talking about the numbers of Model 3s that were coming off the line, he might have been lying about that too.
So the FBI is investigating.
Also, something you're not allowed to lie about on Twitter.
As it turns out.
But you got to think.
What will they take away from him this time?
Well, that's a good question. And also, the funding secured thing seems like, in my mind at least, far more serious.
Yeah.
So could this punishment, I mean, if it's going to be less, then it's like, okay, is it going to be $10 million this time?
I'm pretty sure that the White House press secretary has tweeted worse lies.
Well, every politician has tweeted worse lies. I mean, it's one thing to hurt some short sellers. It's another thing to start a war. But at the same time, there's rules, and he should have to follow the rules. But I'd be surprised if that ends up being anything too serious.
On this week's episode of How Bad Is Bing Really?
Well, we've moved into security.
It's pretty bad, as it turns out.
And it's sad that...
Surprisingly bad.
Yeah, it's sad that this... Like, usually security is something that happens by mistake or maliciousness. This seems like it's just...
Apathy?
Just stupidity. Or, yeah, maybe they don't care. Maybe they saw it and they were like, that's kind of funny.
Surely this is fixed by the time you're watching this. But it was not fixed when we were recording this, which was days after this article
No, I
was
think
written.
actually they have fixed it already.
Bing is publishing. Bing is pushing malware when you search for Chrome. So it turns out you can buy an ad for Google.com and you don't actually have to direct traffic to Google.com. So if somebody searches for Google Chrome, one of the advertisers is advertising malicious links, so that it's like, oh yeah, I can download Chrome and it will go to this Google whatever.
It was GoogleOnline2018.com,
which is going to infect the crap out of your machine.
right?
What a ridiculous, URL. It's like the only one that Google probably didn't already own.
Now Firefox and Chrome both were like, hey, this site's not legit. But Edge,
But they also
Bing,
didn't serve the ad. So only Bing's ad platform lets you spoof the URL.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Got to diversify. That's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, so if you go and if you have a new computer and you're like, oh, I need to download Firefox or Chrome.
Which is the only thing that you're going to use it for, right? That's the
Yeah.
only time that you're going to launch a browser that launches Bing.
I mean, that actually Google used to not verify the URL or whatever, because it was a big deal. Because if you had brand X and you own brand Y, you could advertise for brand X and send the traffic to brand Y. That was actually handy.
Well,
Handy.
that's an
Also kind of unethical, but
interesting lead-in, because let's say that you were going to post some nude photos of your wife.
as one does.
You might not want to put your real email address on that account, right? But you might need to password recover. So you might set up a real email address on the back end for your account, but use your throwaway email for people who want to ask for more nudes of your wife. But then a problem occurs.
A hack on 8 adult website exposes oodles of intimate user data.
I'll say make sure you read that whole thing. Oodles. That's a technical term.
And if you're wondering how much is an oodle, well, it's less than 98 megabytes. It has to be actually divisible. Like 98 megabyte has to be divisible by an oodle because there's more than one, right?
Anything more than that is called a kit and caboodle of intimate user data.
Well, Angel's Wife Lovers was a site that this happened to. And sure enough, all those real email addresses got out there, which means that those nude wives could now be tied to Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts and LinkedIn accounts.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, the Bitcoin emails have just gotten a lot, like the Bitcoin ransom emails where it's like, I got a video of you doing terrible things. Send me Bitcoin. This is going to be great because they're going to really have stuff now.
Now, that's not the only site. I'm just going to run through these. Goodbye to our monetization if you're playing the drinking game. How about Asian Sex for You? That's the number 4 and the letter U.
You should switch to the, so that when the reviewer is reviewing this, it's like, we are quoting Ars Technica.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Ars Technica.
Asian Sex for You, BBW Sex for You, Indian Sex for You, Nude Africa. Why not for you? Why does that one just Nude Africa?
Well, it's for everybody.
Nude Latins, Nude Men, and Wife Poster.
So if you had an account on one of those sites, I've got some bad news for you.
I would hope no one in our audience does, but you never know.
Somebody just hit pause and is freaking out.
It's like, oh no.
It's like, what do I do next?
They pointed out this was not dissimilar to the Ashley Madison hack. Although 98 megs, this is just text information, so that's a lot.
You
but
mean noodle, right?
That's pretty small in terms of leaks.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of people, though. Because, I mean, the collected works of Shakespeare is only like a megabyte. Not even.
And that doesn't even have any nudes in it. Well, here's some good news if you're an iPhone user, but bad news if you're a state or local municipality who's just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Apple just killed the Gray Key iPhone passcode hack. Now, we've covered the Gray Key a bunch on this show. It's the thing that, law enforcement uses to break into an iPhone. Well, Apple figured out what they were doing and has closed that loophole, or so they tell us.
It used some kind of loophole that let it try the numeric password as many times as it wanted and not time out. And it seems like that would probably be pretty easy to fix.
It was kind of a long time for them to figure that out, though.
Yeah, well, got to wonder how hard they were working on that. Well, if you watch the Level 1 news, you probably find yourself in horror uninstalling apps every week, whether they're, malware or spying on you or whatever.
Or our forum.
But here's some bad news.
Apps can now track you even after you uninstall them. New trackers make it easy for developers with fed up users to track fed up users and give them ads to reinstall stuff to be like, hey, we're much better now.
We're totally not using you.
So if you uninstall that app and then all of a sudden you get an ad, it's like, oh, you should install this app you just uninstalled. Well, you're not crazy. Because it turns out push notifications, when they are used, can actually return uninstalled. So all they have to do is hit you with a push notification, and they can tell whether you've ever had that app or not. And that's against the terms of service, but guess what? Everybody does it.
Google, save us. Save us, Google, save us.
They won't.
Apple can do it too.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, now here's an interesting question. Of the three of us, who do you think uses the most mobile data per calendar month?
I got in trouble last month.
And so we thought maybe this was the reason, but it turns out no.
No, I'm just garbage and forget to turn my Wi-Fi on.
Google News, the Google News app has a bug where it's using up gigabytes of background data without users' knowledge. Now, this is impressive because if Google News is doing the stuff right, it should only be bringing text in. And bringing in gigabytes of news text, that is impressive.
Well, even if it brought in the thumbnails.
How does that bug even happen?
Because
that bug only happens in the ivory tower of Google where they have multi-gigabit connections to their phones.
You've only got, like 75 or 50 items on the front page of Google News?
Yeah.
Because you get like 5 in every category.
So it's just downloading it continuously?
I guess, yeah. I mean, it updates a lot, but...
I think somebody needs to make a room at Google that's like the wireless data service that everybody else in the world experiences, and it's like, enjoy your barely faster than 3G.
Well, no, it should be the lowest possible one you could get, like out in the hills of North Dakota or something, So you have to build a service that is at least usable on that.
Is that worse or better than the hills of Eastern Kentucky?
By order of the Google's information czar, your mobile phones will not be any faster than the fastest connection you can get from Archer Park in West Virginia.
Camden.
Camden Park.
Archer Park's in Prestonsburg.
Oh, that's right. I don't even know where my parks are anymore.
Camden Park. What a sad, distressing place to be.
That's going to be in Fallout. I was watching some people play like the beta on Twitch to see if it was any good, and it's like, oh, look.
How bad was the stereotyping?
It was bad.
Well, every week or almost every week, we get the old Amazon unsecured bucket. You put something online, you don't set a password, and it's embarrassing. It affects a lot of different kinds of businesses. Usually they're places that you've never heard of, but they might be subcontractors. But in this case,
adult website.
Yeah, something like that. But some businesses, it's just completely unacceptable. And this is such a case.
An ISP left corporate passwords, keys, and all its data exposed on the internet. The ISP called Pocket INET left 73 gigabytes of customer information and all sorts of craziness just on the internet for anybody to see. So if you were a customer of this ISP, you might want to switch ISPs.
Where is this place? Where is that ISP located?
Let's find out.
I don't recall.
It is Washington. I suppose that's the state.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had not only all of the keys and the passwords, but the physical layout of the equipment. So everything that you could ever want in order to take these people down was right there for everybody to see. And they didn't deny it. They were like, thanks for showing us this. We're going to try to work harder at security.
We're going to do more than the bare minimum.
And not to be outdone, Germany has their own version.
There's a company in Germany that makes spyware for the government, and they left their customer and victim data online for everybody. So the government's like, "Hey, spy on these people." It's like, "Okay, here you go."
That's a lose-lose situation for everybody involved.
Let's upload that to Amazon because why not?
Well, it's legal, which seems wrong, but it is legal for these kinds of companies to hack once they get that government contract. So it's not white hat. What would you call that when it's an evil government who's making it legal for you to do that?
I was going to say red hat, but it's not red hat.
Blood, red for blood?
No, red is in like communist or,
Well, Germany's not communist.
State hacks you. I don't know.
But yeah,
State hacks for you.
they just left it all online. So all the sensitive information, and that's useless now to the government, right? I mean, because it's been exposed. So.
Speaking of red hat, IBM bought them, but we're going to cover that next week.
And
as more details emerge.
Yeah.
Speaking of reasons that you might go to Red Hat.
New Windows 0 Day bug helps delete any file and an exploit's available. So yeah, this was in one of the more obscure Windows services, but you can overwrite files, which, like if you overwrite the correct DLL, Windows might look for that DLL in a user-controlled folder, and then all of a sudden you've taken over the machine. So this is actually a really dangerous vulnerability.
So the problem is it overwrites a log file. You're able to set where to write the log file, and you can choose any file in the system. There's no permission.
Oops.
That's a problem.
A little bit. They
did talk about how it would be very difficult to use this maliciously. It would be a lot of work, but for some people, that's just a challenge.
TechSpot's got a great article on, so they did a lot of research on apps. And it's like, hey, it seems like a lot of apps are harvesting data. Just how bad is this?
The quotation here is out of control.
I think that's accurate.
Google and Facebook are the biggest beneficiaries is the subtitle.
Yeah, so it's funny because it's like, well, they're harvesting this data, but how are they monetizing it? What are they doing with it? Well, it turns out Google and Data are happy to buy it. More than happy. And because almost all apps these days are free, that's how they're monetizing them. So you get those free apps, that's the price you're paying. They are tracking everything they possibly can.
No segue.
I thought maybe you guys would have something to add.
I had nothing else. I was like looking at the next article.
Well,
this is one with a tiny title, so I was having to squint.
Have you guys heard of Cathay Pacific?
That is an airline.
I'd never heard of them before, but bad news, they've also been hacked.
9.4 million people.
If you fly in the Pacific region, got some bad news. All your passport number, your date of birth, your nationality, name, everything somebody needs to steal your identity, it's gone. Gone forever.
Government ID, which I guess is like their social security number.
Yeah, or whatever for the particular government.
And I think some credit cards were in there too. Not everybody, not all 9.4 million had credit cards, but some of them did. And this is another situation where they're like, yep, sorry, our bad.
My bad, dog.
We'll try to help you. We'll try to help you fix it.
Just in case you Linux users were super smug about Windows 10 overwriting files and logs and stuff, we got some bad news for you, too.
Bad week.
X.org has basically exactly the same bug. If you start X.org and you tell it that you want to create a log file anywhere, it's like, okay, sounds good. And it totally will. So you can overwrite the password file and then log in as root.
I might have confused the two.
Good job.
The other one might not have been the log file. But it was very similar. It was overwriting files arbitrarily.
Yeah.
So they just, again, all you have to do is run a command that writes a log file.
Oops.
And you can write wherever you want. And they actually were able to, like one guy was like, hey, pretty sure I could use this exploit with like 2 lines of code to do this other one. And then the next reply was like, I can do it in 1.
To one up each other.
As one does with Linux.
Yeah.
The really, really just amazing thing about this is that it's been there for forever and nobody's caught it, 1. But 2, you junior admins that install the GUI on your servers, this is why you don't do that.
Ooh. Sick
calling people out.
And on that same server, you might have some Python libraries installed. Bad news.
Yeah, don't mistype Django. Well, they fixed it, but 12 malicious Python libraries have been found and removed from the Python package repository. Most of them were squatters on misspellings of Django.
They had, here we go. Diango, Jago, Dajngo, and Jonga.
So if you accidentally installed one of those, bad news. You're probably mining cryptocurrency, or you may have some malware that's...
Well, no, it was one
Trojan.
of those, it was a clipboard attack.
There were several.
Yeah, it detected your key and then swapped it out for their key.
Yeah, so, and there was also one variant of that installed a backdoor, so that's bad.
Well, we are able to predict a lot of the times which stories are going to generate
Downvotes?
Engagement, any kind of engagement. And
Also true, though.
this one is definitely going to be one of those.
System D. The D in System D stands for damn it. I would agree with that. A nasty DHCP v6 packet can own a vulnerable Linux box. Okay, so...
That's kind of a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah. What happened is if you have a computer on a network segment and you send it a DHCP v6 router advertisement, it will try to get a DHCP v6 IP address from the router. But if it's malformed, you can cause System D to crash, or in a worst case scenario, execute arbitrary remote code. Thanks, System D.
If you don't have IPv6 turned on, you're all right. Otherwise, enjoy those crashes and or memory executions.
Get those patches now. Get them while they're good.
Get them while they're hot. No one likes a lukewarm.
And that's the end of security, which breaks Krista's heart. It's her favorite segment.
My favorite segment every week.
So tomorrow, we'll talk about a little bit of robots, just a tiny bit of science and space, and of course, everybody's favorite nonsense. Not tomorrow. It won't be tomorrow.
It will be Friday.
It'll be Friday.
It'll officially be November.
Yeah.
When we do the next episode of the news. It'll be turkey time.
New CPUs, new Threadripper CPUs launched. We got coverage of that. Check out our Bloomberg article, because we did like a little mini segment on Bloomberg, because that's just how we roll. Join our Patreon, because that's what we do mostly. So I don't know.
We haven't done a podcast this month. We're going to do one.
We've got to do a podcast.
That's right.
That comes out soon. So maybe we can have a record-setting month next month to get the bonus podcast. Ooh.
Well, we certainly don't have time for a bonus podcast this month. It's a good thing they didn't give us
They
extra
didn't give
money.
us extra, yeah. We have to do just the 19 map.
All right.
Happy Halloween. Bye.
You're too old for it.
Welcome to Level 1 News. It's November 2nd, and it's turkey time.
Today is nonsense and robots and AI.
And a little bit
that's
of science and space.
Oh, yeah.
Just a touch. And
Teensy, like 2 articles.
maybe the most, you got to stay tuned to the end, but maybe the most demonetized episode of the Level 1 News ever.
Again, if you're playing the bingo card or the drinking game, you can hit a mark there.
Because, it's coming. Let me tell you.
I mean, the reviewer, whoever reviews that, if it's not reviewed algorithmically, really should actually it's motherboard.
It's news.
These are reputable sources.
This is a news story. And I think it's compelling news. You know? It could be a huge... Well, let's just talk about it.
They haven't stopped giggling about it since we
And
pulled
neither
it
will
out.
you. So stay tuned for that. But first, let's talk about some robots that make other robots.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the story.
There's a factory in China that's going to be a bunch of robots making more robots.
There's no pictures in this article.
Well, they got some stock photos, but it's like...
They're going to lead to robot overpopulation.
It's AB is the name of the place. I don't know what AB stands for. But it's a Swiss engineering company that does their stuff in China. But yeah, they've decided that it's getting too expensive. The Chinese middle class, they want too much money. So let's go ahead and get that factory that builds robots with robots. By robots, for robots.
But who buys the robots?
Well, it's FUBU, but it would be Berber. Well, we always talk about AI and how good they are at medicine. And there's just another brick
story.
in the wall of the AI revolution.
Sepsis treatment and fracture diagnosis. So this is, again, an AI that was trained from looking at just a metric ton of medical data, x-rays, and all this other kind of
Probably
stuff.
some very disgusting looking infection photos.
Well, they're looking at x-rays. So they are better at it, better at identifying the sepsis, better at treatment for the sepsis. Apparently, the doctors were too quick to throw IV fluids at the problem. Whereas the AI was like, no, let's get right on top of this.
Broad spec.
Yeah. And they're way better at hairline fractures that humans might miss.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's going to be a crazy world when you have just a personal medical bot in your home.
I was really excited by our next story.
Everybody's excited about this. If you're not excited about this, I don't even know, like, what's wrong with you?
What has happened to the human condition that you're really excited about having anonymous food delivery? It's like Uber is doing drone-based food delivery that could begin as soon as 2021, and the prospect of me being able to get food without having to interact with another human being excites me more than it should.
For me, it's not even the human being factor. It's just there's certain types of food that you want that you can't get unless you go to the restaurant. It's like, well, I don't want to like get dressed and leave my house, but now you can just have a drone deliver it.
You can do the Uber Eats now, though.
Yeah,
I agree. Now this is actually speculation. Uber put up a job posting, but you just got to read between the lines a little bit to figure out that it's probably going to be drone food delivery, because it's like, hey, you're gonna have to organize fleets of drones and accept orders and blah blah blah. So good news. And if you're somebody who's good at that, maybe apply to Uber, get that job, get that.
If you're good at organizing drones,
how about we get it done before 2021? Why we got to wait that long? I'm ready. My body is ready.
I need more food and more tendies.
Now the problem with AI is it's kind of dumb. It's good at looking for hairline fractures, but you got to tell it, like a dog. You got to point at the fracture, be like, look there, go diagnose that. DARPA wants more.
We did that story where like it was a banana next to a holographic sticker, and that just confused the heck out of the AI. So DARPA wants to build a contextual AI that understands the world, and so that type of AI would be able to look at a picture of a banana and a holographic sticker and be like, oh, this is a banana, and also some weird thing that I need to know more about.
You're talking about a human. It's a human.
Yeah. Well, in AI circles, that's called artificial general intelligence, and I think this is going to be a little bit long in the tooth on DARPA's wish list.
A bit of a money pit in the government, maybe a little bit of a pork barrel project.
Little bit of a money pit, yeah.
Well, we talked about AI doing all these things, and usually it's kind of a gimmick. It's like, oh, okay, an AI did that. I can see how it's kind of crappy. It's not quite what we're looking for.
Too stiff.
But in the art world, apparently everything's relative. Yeah.
We talked about this portrait before. An AI-generated portrait has now sold for $432,500 in an auction first. So with this,
there he is.
If you've been following the Level 1 news, this is not any kind of news for you.
This is nearly $500,000 worth of good art right here.
It's just like every old portrait ever made, just condensed into one.
Not as crisp, It's not really.
Well, it's a robot. That's its unique vision.
I think it was literally like, did it actually paint that, or was that digital? I don't remember.
It's probably digital.
Yeah, so not even a robot, just an algorithm.
An algorithm, yeah. And you didn't even buy the algorithm; you just bought the output of the algorithm. This is like, what is the thing where you squeeze all the value out of a market, and then the economy seizes up because there's no liquidity in the market anymore. There's a term for that.
Well, maybe
it's like that, but art.
Maybe some artists need to contact some legal representation to stop this. Oh, wait.
20 top lawyers were beaten by legal AI. Here are their surprising responses.
Look at all those 4 lawyers. Look at them in that stock photo.
No, these are the actual people.
Are they actually?
They've got bios of them, yes.
There were
wow, they look like stock photos.
Well, it was a non-disclosure agreement, pretty standard, but a very thorough and complete non-disclosure agreement.
But with 3 mistakes.
Yes, and the lawyers were expected to find it. And they took between, I was like 120 minutes, 156 minutes. And
I think one guy did it in like 50.
Oh, okay. So it was like 50 to 150 minutes.
Something
but the
like
AI did it in
26 seconds.
26 seconds. So.
And had a better success rate.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think some of the lawyers personally did really well against it, but when you average them out, the AI was better. So.
And faster.
Did the AI still charge them for a full hour of work like all the lawyers did? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it charges by the second.
Reasonable.
Well, before you get the sepsis, or what if you get the sepsis and it's just too much, right? And it's too far gone and you're going to lose an organ. Well, you know what? AI still might save your life.
3D organ on a chip could accelerate search for new disease treatments. So this is basically, you can have a sensing apparatus that is compatible with the cells that are damaged. So you can put nerve cells or heart cells or whatever on this scaffolding and then study it electronically, algorithmically, without actually having to experiment on a human being.
And it grows in 3 dimensions, whereas a petri dish, you only ever get like a cross section, 2-dimensional representation. So they believe that growing different kind of organ cells and watching how they interact will give us some insights into medicine. Which,
I thought it was like a celebrity death match ring, but I've been told that the cells don't fight.
well, they might, Maybe you throw some white blood cells in there just to get things started.
From opposite bodies.
Are you ready to rumble? Because the vibrations help with the healing process.
Well, you know who is ready to rumble? For the 3rd time.
SpaceX official says the company is about to launch a Falcon 9 for the 3rd time. Now, these are the reusable rockets, which is going to make sending stuff to space cheaper than ever because we don't destroy a rocket when we send stuff to space. This is the first time one's been used 3 times.
I think they've done it as it's like they've got 16. No, they've used 16 of them twice at this point. But this is the first time a 3rd use. How nervous are you if your payload's on that rocket?
Pretty nervous.
It's like, guys, can I just wait? And get
It's like, no, it'll be fine. Just pack all your China in there.
Is this a real payload or a test payload?
Is this under warranty? Well, you know what isn't under warranty, unfortunately. And last week we had some devastating news, but hey, it's back.
The Hubble Space Telescope, it was having trouble with the gyroscope, but gosh darn it, they rebooted that gyroscope and it's good as new.
Seems like that would have been like the first thing to try, and that they would have had to they would have just avoided the whole article.
I don't think it was that simple. See, what was happening was they booted up a backup gyroscope. One of them actually did fail, and they booted up a backup, but it was giving them bad readings. But it turns out there was probably just like something in the gears. So they ran it through the diagnostics forward and backward to like throw whatever the piece was out of the gear, and it worked.
Nice.
I think we're at 3 now. So 3 gyroscopes left. You need 2 for an accurate reading. So still not the best situation.
Yay, Hubble. Good job. Way to go, champ.
Get as much research as you can in there.
That's your kid voice.
Well, here's a moral question for you. Should you be rewarded for murdering your wife?
These people think so.
There's an inmate who made a deal with authorities to reveal the location of his murdered wife's body in exchange for an Xbox. And at first, I saw the headline and I started reading and I was like, oh, we're talking about Hans Reiser. No, it's just some guy in Florida. Florida man.
Florida man.
Yeah, Florida
His
man.
poor wife.
He was convicted for murdering his wife. It was a pretty open and shut case, I think. But he never would tell him where the body was. And they really wanted to give the family the closure or whatever, so they negotiated with him and he said, you know what, I'll tell you, for an Xbox. He also got a little outdoor excursion to take them to the spot.
That's horrific and terrible.
But for an Xbox, which is why we're talking about it.
Well, we often talk about the strange outrage and the kind of personality that's just looking to be offended by anything. And this week, the SQLite community really showcased that.
I thought they were trolling, but they said they weren't trolling. So the SQLite creator has been crucified. That's a pun. After Code of Conduct warns devs to love God and not kill, commit adultery, blah, blah, blah. All the SQLite people did was use the
Code of Conduct for monks.
The Benedictine monk Code of Conduct.
From 1517 or something. And it's like, let's just do that. I'm not going to try to invent a better Code of Conduct.
It was clearly a joke.
Well,
he sort of defended it in an odd way. But I think everybody could sort of recognize it's like, if you behaved in that way, you probably wouldn't offend anybody, was the point, right?
Yeah.
But so many people were quick, just like, as an atheist, I don't approve. I don't know if I can be a part of this community because, it just doesn't go along with my morals and I don't believe in that. And just a lot of sadness. A lot of
Tips Fedora.
Would you have preferred a Code of Conduct that is like, don't be a terrible person?
They already had that. They had like a really simple one, and people weren't having that either. But I guess more importantly, the Benedictine monk Code of Conduct probably not inclusive to transgenders.
Probably didn't mention them.
Probably not.
See, what would you think would happen if one of those monks in that time period went to his superior and was like, listen, I feel like I should change my gender.
You wouldn't be allowed to be at the monastery anymore.
Think there'd be a large pile of kindling in your future?
I was just thinking you had to go to the nunnery, but
Well, if you remember, speaking of religion, you remember when Pokemon Go came out, one of the people who spoke out against it was the Pope. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he thought it was
False idols or something.
of the devil. Yeah. So, but if you were one of the people that was like, listen, if the Pope doesn't like it, I'm against it. Well, good news for you.
The Vatican did not release this. The Vatican just approved of it. But hey, okay, whatever.
It was a papal.
Blessing. Yeah, the papal was like, yeah, this is fine. They've released a Pokemon Go clone for Catholics that is, I shit you not, called JC Go, where JC means Jesus Christ.
it should be called Relic Hunter.
Yeah, you can see here. So there are saints and biblical characters and things like that, holy relics, and you find them just like you do Pokemon. There's no battling, because it's peaceful, but you will have to answer some trivia about Catholic religion.
It's not trivia. That is critically important. Something, I don't know. Fake outrage.
Well. Now we have, normally I might close the news with this story because it's ridiculous and it doesn't have anything to do with technology. But this week.
But we've got a better story.
This week we've got a real star at the end this week. So we're gonna,
it's something.
So we will. And in a lot of ways, these two stories might cross over, and that'll make more sense when we talk about
A
it.
rising star piercing the heavens. Most Stuf Oreo will have more than triple the cream filling, and it looks absolutely disgusting.
Look at this abomination. Look at this.
It
That
does
is
look
repulsive. That's so much stuff.
It's cream.
You're foreshadowing too much. So yeah,
I can't get this slider control out of my mind.
Oreo.
I don't think the story's that funny, but them giggling is making me laugh.
It's so funny.
So funny.
A lot of people are going to agree with us on that. So Oreo has whoever is that Nabisco or who
No,
owns
it's
them?
Nabisco.
Yeah, has
I shouldn't know that, but I do.
They've confirmed yes, this is a real thing. It's coming. Prepare yourself for it.
This is one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse right here.
The triple Stuf Oreo.
Yeah.
You just imagine there is no way you could bite that in half, right? Because it's just going to be
I mean, you could. It's just going to go everywhere. It's
exactly.
like sand.
God, there's so many parallels.
Just kick to the front of the desk.
Well, let's talk about Samsung. So apparently Russia has their own version of Paris Hilton. Who knew?
Now, see, I thought more like the Kardashians. I think that the
Well,
Paris
I mean-
Hilton analogy is kind of dated, but
For today, yeah. Because Paris Hilton, listen, she's yesterday's news, right?
yeah.
Those stars burn too bright to stay, in the heavens for long. But yeah, let's say the Russian Kim Kardashian, and she's an influencer, I believe is what we call them, right?
Instagram influencer, like Stacy back here.
But she's made a terrible mistake.
Samsung has sued a brand ambassador for $1.6 million for using an iPhone X in public. So,
Look, she's trying to hide
So
it.
subtle.
What are they using red Solo cups? Are those coffee cups or?
They're just
Oh,
getting
no, it's
drunk.
some kind of coffee cup. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, she was on TV, and she's a Samsung ambassador. But oops, using an iPhone, she tweeted an apology sent
From her
from my iPhone.
Yeah.
No, bad news. And it's also bad. So let's say that you're a researcher, right?
Okay.
And you're in the Arctic, because that's where you do some research. There's some interesting stuff going on in the Arctic.
Lots of ice.
You got to deal with cold temperatures and maybe not getting a food shipment and crippling loneliness and all those things. But some things you don't expect to deal with.
Man stabs colleague at Antarctic base after suffering an emotional breakdown.
I think he's the thing.
You think he's the thing?
They need to keep him under very careful surveillance and test his blood
But I think
with an electric wire.
it took them a long time to get there. So I think the thing probably abandoned that body.
Who knows? All the other researchers could be
Yeah,
compromised. We
so
don't know.
they're not going to find it in him. It's still in the base.
I was thinking it was good old-fashioned Shining syndrome.
Yeah. I imagine there was probably two people that just really didn't like each other. And you can't not spend time with that person because you would freeze to death. So, now this story, there's a lot of you in this audience who are just completely humorless. And it's shocking to me. It's shocking how
it's really bothering him this week.
you tend to miss almost every, and it's not just that, okay, I would accept if you thought the humor was bad, but you just totally miss the irony and the sarcasm. It just totally goes over your head. And I guarantee you there are going to be comments. Maybe not in our news, but when this comes out, people are going to be like, this is not what Roddenberry imagined. This is not the spirit of Starfleet.
Star Trek animated comedy series ordered from Rick and Morty writer. So talking about doing a Star Trek comedy in the style of the Lower Decks, the episode of The Next Generation, where it was more about what's going on in the lower decks. So this would be like one of the worst ships in the Federation with the lower crew members. So it's like, oh yeah, somebody's going to have to deal with that janitorial issue where, crewman something or other has done something really terrible. Stuff like that.
They talked about his pitch, his show pitch was, I want to do a show about the guys who load the yellow into the replicator so you can have bananas. So I bet that will be really funny. I like the memes that come from the Star Trek the Animated Series. You ever see that? Those are always funny.
They did a lot of animation cell recycling in the animated series.
So much, yeah.
So it was...
But they sell action figures.
Oh, of course they
Not
did.
until later. Like the action figures were just like super low quality.
Who do you think Roddenberry owned the merchandising?
Oh, that's a good question. If he had, he would probably be super wealthy.
Well, I think he was super wealthy anyway. Somebody's making money off of that. But anyway, this is CBS once again. This is going to be on that CBS, the same thing that Discovery's on, right?
Oh yeah, Discovery comes back soon. Not looking forward to that.
But it's not going to be on the main television. It's just going to be that they're trying to drive people to that other thing.
Oh, the streaming service.
I'm sure this will be pretty popular because Rick and Morty is such a cult classic.
If that guy is allowed to do his humor and he's still got plenty of humor left over after doing the same kind of humor for Rick and Morty, it'll probably be pretty funny.
Yeah, the CBS censors could really castrate that.
That's true.
And leave it very empty. All right, so we've teased it long enough. Teased it.
Oh my gosh.
Krista, why don't you read the headline?
The blowjob paper. Scientists processed 109 hours of oral sex to develop an AI that sucks dick.
This is from Motherboard. To the YouTube reviewer that's reviewing this to see if it's worthy of monetization. It's on Motherboard.
The article itself is probably not that funny. It's the illustrations.
Oh my God, it's so
funny. And the animations that go with it.
Well, first let's talk about, this is actually
totally safe for work.
Very scientific.
It is insanely scientific.
This is not a gimmick. They are really, really, they put a lot of thought into this. And one of the things that they did is they developed a user interface that then they could watch pornography, and based on that pornography, they wanted to try and judge the depth of insertion. And what does that UI look like?
That's a control. You click on the head and drag it.
That's a slider. You click on the big head.
I have so many questions. I don't really want the answers, but
there wasn't they needed to capture the data. There wasn't any programmatic way to automatically capture the data from the video, so they had to pay somebody to do this.
Yes, they watched thousands of hours and manually moved that. So they watched it at half speed, which takes even longer, and they had to move that slider to sort of judge. Now you're wondering, why would they do this, right? What's that data going to be used for? Well, they're working on a device.
And if you're only listening right now, you're not really getting the full effect of the article, which has some more animations here.
You got to check out those animations. I mean, good Lord.
God, that's so hilarious.
I have a question about the efficacy of using porn to learn.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that's happening on
exaggerated.
camera.
Yeah.
Well, it's visual more than effective. Yeah, I don't know, but they pulled a lot of data, as we can see here from this GIF. This is actually just a table. This is all chart data that's showing off all the things that they found out. They studied things, of course, like not only just depth, but the frequency, speed, whether or not you take pauses, and they determined that you don't want just repetitive speed. You got to change it up, because in reality, that's never just the same thing for 20 minutes or whatever. They also came up with this formula
Are you going to be teaching that in math classrooms? Or just...
I mean, that's one way to teach Markov models, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
No one wanted to put their name on this, apparently. They've contacted a lot of researchers, and everyone was like, no, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of academic institutions were like, no. But finally they found one, and they were like, all right, we'll do it. And we've got some scientists that are willing to participate, but nobody wants to claim credit for it.
Yeah, and they really did want AI scientists. They didn't just try to half-ass that. They brought in people who really understand artificial intelligence. They're like, no, we're dead serious about this. We want real AI.
Honestly, this is the kind of thing that built the internet. Most people don't realize.
Is there some poor UI artist or illustrator out there who's like, their portfolio has this GIF in it? Like, they've got illustrations for other sites. They've done, I did an icon set for Google, and then it's like, and then there's this.
Motherboard.vice.com. That's all I'm saying.
It's hilarious that that's a male head, first of all. Very inclusive. You know, you got to applaud them for that. They had some foresight. But he looks sort of just surprised, you know?
Well, he didn't think this would be happening.
He's not sure what's going on. He's not sure how he feels about it.
Are you saying that whoever did the design didn't do a good job?
No, it's brilliant. I think it's incredible. You know, it probably, and then we've got this. This was the workstation. So you have this real time data, and then there's a video here. So cropped beautifully for
goodness.
the situation. Now, if you're watching this, you know, some of you are laughing, and some of you are shaking your head, and some of you are downvoting. Some of you are like, what was the URL for that?
Can I pre-order?
You can't get it yet. It's being, I don't know if it was Kickstarter or GoFundMe.
You can read the article at motherboard.vice.com.
Yeah, and that'll probably point you to the crowdfunding. And I'm sure you'll get, you know, like a test model if you pay enough for the top tier. I think they've raised like 50 grand already. That was their goal. So, and they're stretching out 50 grand with all that. I mean, that had to be kind of pricey, don't you think?
I think the article said it was like $30,000 for all that research.
Just for the AI. Yeah.
Which, honestly, as far as AI research goes, especially if you've got a good team, that's actually pretty cost effective.
Yeah. And plus, none of them can put that on their resume. It's going to be an employment gap. What were you doing in the fourth quarter of 2018?
Secret research.
Yeah, I took that time off.
I was rebalancing myself, really contemplating what I'm doing with my life.
We were too busy trying to figure out if we could, but we didn't stop to think about if we should.
During that time, I wasn't sure if AI was good for the world, to be honest with you.
What a weird article.
What a weird article. We'll see you next week.
What a weird world.